countdown to the last comic shop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, it is now time for more of the Last Comic Shop!
That's right, we are opening up the shop to newbies to help them find their way underneath the comic book tent.
And we're stringing lights all around the shop because it's awards season, ladies and gentlemen.
It is!
We've got to class this place up, roll out the red carpets and whatnot.
Yeah, that's right. We got the little champagne bottles. We've got like the plastic champagne flutes. J.A. wanted to spring for the real champagne flutes, but I said, you know what? The last time we got those...
That's why I have to steam clean the carpets.
Wait, you've had a carpet steamer this whole time?
No, I just rented it.
I am the host with the most, Andy Larson. I'm joined by Chad Smith and J.A. Scott, and it is award season. Yes, the Eisner Awards are right around the corner, and so all this month we're going to be talking about the Eisner Awards leading up to San Diego Comic-Con in 2 short weeks, where a lot of the most prestigious awards in comic book dumb will be given to those folks in the industry.
You call it comic book dumb. That's dummies.
Yes, the Eisners. So in a show in a couple weeks, we'll talk about who actually got nominated for the Eisners. But there's another award that's given out at the Eisners every single year, which doesn't get as much data as the main Eisner Awards does, and that is the Hall of Fame. Every single year we talk about who is inducted into the Eisner Hall of Fame, and it's not even part of the ceremony anymore. They give it its own special ceremony because, again, nobody cares. It's sad, but it's true.
That's not true. It's so people can celebrate and enjoy the rest of the show, right?
You keep telling yourself that. Any case, we enjoy it here at the Last Comic Shop podcast because we try to educate folks on the myriad of comics that are out there, especially ones with historical context. And a lot of these folks that get inducted into the Eisner Hall of Fame get those awards posthumously, but it's still good. Right? I mean, you're still giving their families that recognition. I'm sure that their children and their significant others appreciate what the Eisner Awards give them. Right, guys? I mean, yeah.
I would say there's some bittersweetness in there a bit. It does feel like the Hall of Fame at times is a bit of a makeup for the fact that when these people were working, they were just kind of crapped on. So I think the comics book industry has not been kind to individual artists and writers at times. They tend to get ground under the commercial boot. Yes. So you could look at the Eisner Hall of Fame as a way of trying to make up for that a bit.
Yeah.
Whether it does or not after years of zero recognition for your work and not getting paid for it.
All right.
It's just an honor to be nominated. Oh, come on. It's an award show.
It's an honor. You have to thank the Academy.
J.A. is correct that, again, the one thing that I will give credit for the Eisner Hall of Fame is they do shine a spotlight on the significant contributions that both minorities and women have played in comics over the years. It's especially African-American artists that back in the day did not get the credit that they deserved for some of their groundbreaking work. And speaking of African-American artists, one of the first people I'm going to talk about that's getting inducted into the Eisner Hall of Fame as an automatic inductee is Billy Graham. That's right. Not the preacher guy or the awesome superstar wrestler. We're talking about Billy Graham, who drew a lot of comics, especially one of our favorites that we reviewed several shows back when that Black Panther Wakanda Forever movie dropped. We talked about him and fellow inductee this year, Don McGregor's Jungle Action run called Panther's Rage. That big story arc that he had about, Black Panther going back to Wakanda and fighting through a bunch of Rogues Gallery members and
a dinosaur.
Killmonger was in it, and they made him
Disco Fantastic outfit.
It's true. But Billy Graham was wonderful, and not only did he team up with Don McGregor on that particular run of Black Panther comics, but he also did one of the first graphic novels in the 70s that kind of brought that whole subgenre of comics back into the forefront with Saber. So if you've never had an opportunity to read Saber, it's a really, really great book. Pioneered, again, that particular form of getting comic books out to audiences as opposed to the single issue floppies. So yeah, Don McGregor and Billy Graham both getting into the Eisner Hall of Fame this year. Chad, who do you got on your list?
I was going to say, I'm still thinking about that Penguins Classics edition that has the Panthers Rage storyline in it. That's a beaut. Just watch out for the fingerprints on the cover.
Oh yeah, but get the new printing of it, because the original printing, the gold leaf just flakes off of it like a bad rash.
Wise advice there. So yeah, I am going to talk about one of the first folks that I encountered when I got into comics, their work, and it's Lynn Barda. She had done the colors on The Dark Knight Returns. That coloring was different than all the other coloring you would see throughout comics. And not only was it just beyond the traditional 4-color formatting, Lynn Varley's work really stood out as something different and something exceptional. And I believe that she was the model that, so many other comic artists, as coloring technology got better and better, that they aspired to look like. And so she continued to work with Frank Miller, which coincidentally, they were married for a time, but she worked on Ronin, Elektra Lives Again, The Big Guy, and Rusty the Boy Robot with Jeff Darrow. But all of her books are standout works. And so, yeah, Lynn Varley is definitely deserving.
So one that I'm going to pick out is a little bit older. Unfortunately, one of those posthumous inductees in Warren Kramer. He is the creator of Richie Rich.
Ooh.
And worked on a lot of kids' books, including Little Max, Joe Palooka, Stumbo the Giant, Hot Stuff, and Little Audrey. Doing all that in the late 40s at Harvey Comics. And then in the 80s, he came over to Star Comics, which is Marvel's kid imprint, and he worked on Ewoks and Count Duckula.
See, some folks don't get as much credit for that, honestly, but they should, because although some folks may say, they're kiddie comics, those are the gateways for a lot of kids to not only get into comic books, but also just get into reading in general, right? Like putting the pictures with the words and putting friendly characters like Richie Rich,
Casper, also from Harvey Comics.
Yeah. Or Hot Stuff. I've always heard great things about Hot Stuff.
Yeah. So good for him that he's getting into the Eisner Hall of Fame, because kids' comic books are extremely important.
Oh. And in that vein, Oscar Lebeck, also posthumously inducted, is best known for his role in establishing Dell Comics in the 1930s and 40s, where he hired Walt Kelly.
Pogo.
And they originated Pogo, yes.
Well, there you go. And speaking of other publishers getting into the Eisner Hall of Fame this year, we've got James Warren of Warren Publishing. That's right. If you're a huge fan of Bronze Age comics like me, then you know about all of those awesome Warren Publishing magazines that were put out in the 70s and early 80s. Stuff like Vampirella, Creepy, Eerie, just again, that black and white awesomeness that was still kind of a creative outlet for folks that wanted to tell stories that were, couldn't appear in regular comics because of the Comics Code. They put them still in those magazines. Horror and hard sci-fi and titillation to
blazing combat.
Exactly. Kind of all of the stuff that was done away with after the Seduction of the Innocent in the 1950s, and we lost things like EC Comics and stuff. So without Warren Publication in those comic book magazines, we would really be behind here in the United States in terms of some of those subgenres of comic books. Good stuff.
I'll finish things off with another publisher. I'm going to go with Gary Groff, who... While I don't always necessarily agree with Mr. Groff, he's quite opinionated. He's a comic book editor, a comic book critic. He's a comic book fan. You may or may not have read some of his interviews back in Comics Journal. He also co-founded Fantagraphics Books, which is one of those publishers that is constantly trying to push comics to that next level. Books like Monster from Barry Windsor Smith came out through Fantagraphics. Or was it My Favorite Thing is Monsters? Maybe both.
Both of them.
Both are Fantagraphics. well, as much as I appreciate having those standard superhero books out there, people like Gary Groff, the business is all that much better for them. So I think he's well deserved getting into the Eisner Hall of Fame there.
Well, there you go. And there are much more names on this list. You can definitely take a look at our social medias for a complete listing as we lead up to the Eisner Hall of Fame. But real quickly, guys, I want to get your votes for who you think is going to be among the nominees. Again, these are judges' choices, are not automatic selections. A couple names I'm just going to throw out here, guys, before we get started. Wonderful folks that everybody knows, including Jim Lee, Mike Mignola, Tom Palmer, Klaus Janson, Don Heck, Mike Friedrich, Eddie Campbell, Gus Areola, Jill Thompson, Angelo Torres. Yeah, there's a lot of folks on there. So we're going to start off with Chad. Your 4 people that you think are going to get into the Eisner Hall of Fame, Chad.
Okay, so I'm going to go with the ones that had the most impact on me, which isn't to denigrate the folks that I'm leaving off. But Klaus Janson stands out first. We already talked about Dark Knight Returns. Klaus Janson also worked on Daredevil with Frank Miller, and once Frank Miller was gone, he stayed. And so definitely Klaus Janson makes my list. Mike Mignola, talking about people who've had an impact on comics, he's someone who has taken a style and turned it into a cottage industry. You instantly recognize the Mike Mignola work, and he's been doing it, since he came out of the gates. Let's see, I'm a child of the 90s, so even though Jim Lee is like 4 or 5 on my list on Image Guys, his X-Men work was great. I was just having a conversation in a comic shop the other day, but up through his run on Batman and Superman when he first started working at DC, that was great stuff. And then to round things out for the 4th, I'm going to go with Mike Royer, who, as I learned to love Jack Kirby's work, which took a minute, I started noticing Mike Royer's name underneath him more and more often. For that impact, Mike Royer makes my 4.
All right. J.A., do you have some similar picks?
I think I got to go with Jim Lee. I just wondered, does he get like 5 different nominations that you can line up together to make one giant nomination? Also, some ones I'd like to highlight. Ira Schnapp, who's a logo designer, came up with the redesign of Superman's logo in the 1940s. Also designed the Comics Code seal.
Ooh.
So, sort of classic and Art Deco.
I mean, the Comics Code logo is man, that is iconic. Just by itself, that should get an award.
And Tom Palmer. Now, I know he's just an inker, so all he does is trace. Yes, I just watched Chasing Amy the other day again.
Ouch.
In a long while. But some of the people he's worked with, he did inks for Neil Adams and Gene Colan and John Buscema, John Byrne. He also penciled Jungle Jim stories for Charlton, Nightmare and DC's House of Secrets, and Steel. And a man after my own heart, he did cover art for Marvel's Star Trek and Star Wars titles. So, and I guess finally, Jill Thompson, who is known widely for her Wonder Woman stuff at DC in the 90s, and she also worked in DC Vertigo, contributing to Neil Gaiman's Sandman, worked on The Invisibles and Black Orchid and Seekers into Mystery.
Oh, there you go. All right. Well, those are some pretty good picks. I'm going to be real quick with mine. Honestly, it's hard to not say that Jim Lee and Mike Mignola deserve to get in. Those are kind of like the no-brainers, I think, off this list. If they don't get in, I'll eat my hat. 2 other names I'm just going to throw out there that I think people also should take a look at their work. Obviously, Mike Friedrich. Love his stuff over the years, especially as being a huge fan of Starreach. I've tried to sing the praises of Starreach to anybody that will listen. That was one of the first alternative press publishers. And again, not only that, but he co-founded WonderCon. And it just seems like everybody I've ever talked with, Mike Friedrich is a name that connects folks. It's like him and Dan Atkins. Like those 2 guys seem to connect so many folks in the comic book industry, especially those folks that we talked to from the 70s and the 80s. So, yeah, And the final one, I think I'm going to have to go back to Chad's pick with Klaus Janson. I have an awesome movie adaptation of the Close Encounters of the Third Kind that was done with Walt Simonson pencils and Klaus Janson inks. And luckily for me, I got both of those guys to sign it at a Baltimore Comic Con a couple of years ago. So kudos to me if Klaus Janson gets in. In any case, that's all of the time we had for the Hall of Fame inductees for this week's show. Coming up after these commercial breaks will be a Eisner-nominated book, Best Ongoing Series, with Kelly Thompson's Birds of Prey. Stay tuned for that.
LastComicShopPodcast.com is the destination for all things shop. Plan your week with upcoming show schedules, the latest books, recommendations, and chatter from the crew. Subscribe to the show on all major podcasting platforms from one convenient location. Show your support and browse the merch store. T-shirts, tanks, hoodies for the fam, coffee mugs, magnets, totes, and more. Check out exclusive content through the show's YouTube channel and follow the pod on Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, and others. All this and so much more at www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com. www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com.
We're all familiar with the Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, and Modern Age of comics, but we can't still be in the Modern Age after almost 4 decades, can we?
We don't think so. And that's why we started the Iron Age of Comics, a critical re-evaluation of comic books from about 1985 to 2000.
On this podcast, we go beyond the chromium covers and the grim and gritty cliches, and take a deep dive into one of the most vibrant but divisive periods in comics history.
That's the Iron Age of Comics, with new episodes every first and third Wednesdays of the month. And look for us on social media, where the handle is @Iron Age of Comics.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and as Andy had mentioned earlier, this week we are reviewing the new book, the Eisner-nominated work, Birds of Prey. Now, we read the first 9 issues of this series. It's been coming out of DC Comics for the last year or so. J.A., can you give us the who's it's involved in all these predatory lady hawks?
That's right. J.A. loves that movie.
I do love that movie. I just watched it again. It holds up, even with a young Matthew Broderick. Okay, so the Birds of Prey series was written by Kelly Thompson with art by Leonardo Romero. Colors were provided by Jordi Belair, and letters by the omnipresent Clayton Cowles.
Yes.
And then we've got a host of cover artists depending on the issue that you buy. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but.
Yeah, and there's also a fill-in artist on one of the issues. I think it was like, issue 5 or something like that. The only reason I know that is because the art style was completely different. Everybody had big doll eyes, like just enormous irises the size of dinner plates. I was just like, wow, this person loves women's eyes.
So we did have some fill-in artists. Issue 5 was Aris Dean. And I think there was one on issue 8 as well.
7 and 8, yes, were Javier Pina,
who drew Barda's backside,
and then
Lopez.
David Lopez assisted on the next issue.
But I just I couldn't get over that one issue with the giant eyes, man. Like, because it was such a change. Another thing I'll say is like the colors were kind of like it was a different kind of coloring than I was used to, right? Like it was different. Off center, or
it's a bit more impressionistic, maybe. I don't know.
Well, one thing that is definitely not impressionistic is the 10-cent synopsis. Well, it is because these are my impressions of the first 9 issues.
I'm worried about this one.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Kelly Thompson comes in and she wants to remake the Birds of Prey, which is great. And the first 6 issues deal with Black Canary forming a team in order to save her sister, who I didn't know was her sister because, again, I don't read DC Comics, but long story short, it is her sister, Sin, who I think is from Longbow Hunters. Is that the name of the other assassin? Jay, do you remember?
I don't.
We are terrible at comics. But any case, she puts the band back together, but it's not a lot of folks from the original Birds of Prey, because she doesn't include Babs on purpose, as we'll find out later, because some person from the future tells her that Babs keeps dying on this mission to Themyscira, which is where they have to rescue Sin. So they go there, and it's her and Barda and Zealot from Wildcats.
Oh, yeah. I keep forgetting that. And Grifter didn't have his face napkin on, so I didn't know.
He just had, he was just drinking coffee and hanging out and being like a himbo.
He was like young Green Arrow. I was like, wait, is that? No, that's not Green Arrow. Okay.
But then there was also Cassie Kane, which is everybody's favorite Batgirl, and
Little Bat, the Little Bat,
and then Harley Quinn. So
no, sorry, not Little Bat, Small Bat. That's what Barda calls Cassie Kane, Small Bat.
It's pretty cool, actually. Like I liked how Kelly Thompson was like channeling like an inner dude bro kind of thing for Barda. In any case, they go there and there's like some evil god Megara that wants to take over Sin, whatever. Long story short, eventually it leads into a story arc where they have to get former Birds of Prey member Vixen. In order to get Vixen on the group, she says that they have to dress up like runway models and fight a bunch of half-naked men on stage, which was a great 2 issues. And then by the end of that, Babs gets sucked into an alternate dimension where they all get to put on black leather and walk around. And that's how the first 9 issues end. But overall, great stuff from Kelly Thompson. Trust me, even though my 10-cent synopsis probably didn't inform you of how awesome these 9 issues were. They were super awesome. A lot of clever quipping, lots of snappy dialogue, and nice chemistry among a lot of the members there. So yeah, I guess I'll throw it out there that was my initial thought.
That's what I'll take that up. I think Kelly Thompson's strength is definitely in the dialogue and how the characters talk to each other. The plotting and the overall story arc, it's very decompressed storytelling. Again, we're only 9 issues in, and this is like an issue and a half of real comics.
Wow.
That's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. It's 22 pages, and there's a lot of dialogue, but the plot doesn't move along very far. Every issue, you're wondering what the cliffhanger is going to be to suck you into the next issue, because there is almost always a cliffhanger at the end of the issue. I guess that's just modern comics as well. You can tell that these are written in sort of 5-issue arcs so that they can put them together into a trade.
Well, except for the second story, that's 2 issues one way, and then the next one is 5. I'm going to mess up the. Sorry.
But no, I get what J.A.'s saying, honestly. The series is written for trade, which, I mean, you can't fault Kelly Thompson for doing that because that's how all comic books are written nowadays. But you're right, J.A. I probably could think, honestly, the whole story about going to Themyscira and trying to save, Sin from the Amazons probably could have been a 2-issue storyline back in the day, but they kind of stretch it out to 6.
Yeah, but that being said, the stretching out gave us some great Barda versus Wonder Woman panels where like Barda drops Wonder Woman on her knee, and then she's like, hopefully she doesn't come back from that. Of course she does, because she's Wonder Woman.
Yes, right. Stop calling me princess. That was a wonderful line, and Barda was the gem. Barda was the main reason I kept on laughing and smiling. But Chad, you haven't said much. What did you think of these 9 issues?
I thought they're pretty good. I enjoyed getting the band together. I enjoyed Kelly Thompson's take on Harley Quinn and Barda. I was very sad to see that Harley Quinn isn't on the team throughout, just because I thought she really added that dynamic when you're bouncing her off of. Not Mockingbird, DC Mockingbird, Black Canary. But no, they made a good yin and yang, I felt, and so I'm sure she'll be back soon enough. But yeah, there were a couple of characters that I didn't necessarily care about or know enough about to care. Like Meridian plays a big part in the story. I don't know who that is. And Sin, it's obvious that the characters care about Sin, but I didn't have enough for that character to really understand, the gravity of that. I did enjoy when they go to Themyscira. Apparently, there's some history between Zealot and Wonder Woman, etc. So she does some hoodoo voodoo thing to make it so that she cannot kill nor be killed.
Yeah.
So that part's fun. She can just stab whoever she wants.
Right.
And proves it like a page later by stabbing Harley Quinn right through the chest.
But you're right. I mean, that was one nice thing is I never read Wildcats. I will be very honest. I never read Wildcats back when it was with Image or when they eventually Jim Lee came to DC and they started incorporating those characters into the DC universe. So I had no stake with Zealot, but I thought by the end of that first arc, I genuinely was interested to see like, oh, maybe I should read a little bit more about this Zealot. She kind of has like a kind of a cool power set, and is she immortal? Like, I need to know more about her.
There you go. Maybe this will give you the impetus to check that out. And as far as the art goes, the Leonardo Romero art, I remember seeing him on a couple of the issues of the Fraction Hawkeye series. I think that's where I was first introduced to his work. And this very much feels like, a team version of that book almost, at least in terms of the overall vibe that it's putting out there. With that said, I don't know. I don't know what all the buzz is about. Like, I just...
So hold on. Hot take. Are you saying this shouldn't be an Eisner Award nominated best continuing series?
I mean, we'll get to this when we get to that portion, but not over the Fantastic Four. I mean, this is a quality comic book. It's a fun comic book. I don't see anything here that is exceptional.
Groundbreaking or exceptional. Yeah.
Like, it's a good time, but when it came time for us to do the synopsis, I was like, oh, I can't do that. It's already gone. Like, I read it 2 days ago, and this is,
all right, J.A., I mean, this was your pick. Do you feel like this is Eisner-nominated stuff?
I don't know if it's Eisner-nominated stuff or not. I do know that I picked it up when issue 8 was on the racks, because issue 8 got a ton of news because there was a naked Barda in it, and I like big Barda, so I picked that up, and then I read the whole series in a weekend. That decompressed storytelling does lend itself well to reading big chunks of the run in one setting. So that is nice. You don't have to decompress after an issue the way you have to do with some Bronze Age books. And it's fun. It's fun. Those issues with Barda versus Wonder Woman, I think issue 4, you can't get any better than that. That's just great stuff. Barda bows to no one. Yeah. When Wonder Woman's got her wrapped up in the lasso and is trying to tie her down, but she's having to tell the truth in her Barda way. And
then you've got Harley Quinn saying all the Themyscirans must be to bondage because she carries around a lasso. Like, that's what I'm saying. There is so much sexual innuendo, tongue-in-cheek stuff going on with Kelly Thompson's writing here that I just like. That issue where like Barda spends the entire issue like naked. How they have like the panels set up so the kick is at the exact angle so that it's covering up a private pit, and then there's a punch that's covering up a private part, and it's just like, this is wonderful stuff. These are beautiful women. This is wonderful. I don't know. I loved it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Just fun? Come on, guys.
I don't know. The whole MacGuffin of the god monster wanting to eat Sin, and like I don't know. It just left me flat. I
will agree with you. The god monster, then spoilers, eventually they bond and become a new thing where like the god monster is bonded with Sin. I thought the payoff for that whole story arc was, that's kind of meh.
Yeah, but it's setting up the bigger storyline about the relationship between Black Canary and Babs. I mean, Babs is the whole that's like, you can obviously tell she's not on the team in the first 6 issues. And to Chad's point, even
so then why there? I mean, if you're going to pick something apart and Chad is looking for, it's good, but it is why you have this whole big setup only to get to the main story of Babs. Again, I guess it's the way that you have to tell stories in this day and age where you have to have those 5 to 6 issue arcs that, okay, we're going to tell the God Monster Sin arc, and now we're going to tell the Babs arc.
Well, but they're interconnected, because I feel like the main character of this entire series is Black Canary, and what you're learning about Black Canary is that she genuinely has very strong attachments to certain other sisters, almost, as you will, in the DC universe, and the lengths that she's willing to go for her sisters in this particular book, and the lengths that a lot of other women are willing to go for their surrogate sisters in this book. Like, I mean, Cassie Kane is just like, yep, I'm on board. What do you need me to do? And so I thought it was refreshing. I like that sisterhood kind of aspect. And that's kind of like the thread that's like, these girls are just having a good time. And if this was like Matt Fraction writing it about a bunch of dudes, we all be like, yeah, let's go, dudes. Way to go with the bro-ness and the bro love. This is like sis love or sister love. This is love. This is awesome. This is bro love too. I like it. I'm not gonna convince.
Come on, Chad. You don't like the little bat?
I do. I don't know why I'm being so persnickety about this, because it is fun. I keep saying that, but that's because it is. You know, I love the relationships between the characters. I just, for whatever reason, there's something that I don't see that's elevating this in other people's eyes. And so maybe once they get around to telling this story that they begin in the 9th issue, and I get a little bit more meat on the bone, maybe I'll appreciate it more. Maybe this is a long haul thing.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get to ratings right after these commercial breaks. So stay tuned to more of The Last Comic Shop as we continue to talk about Birds of Prey.
Hey, it's Mikey Wood, frequent Last Comic Shop guest and collector. And as a collector, I'm always in need of boards, bags, long boxes, and more to house all those comics. That's why I use promo code LCSPOD to get 10% off my orders at bcwsupplies.com. Not only does it get me a discount on BCW's already low prices, but I know using LCSPOD at checkout is another way I can show my support to the Last Comic Shop podcast and their continuing mission to bring fans together under that big comic book tent. So if you're in need of comic book supplies, head out to bcwsupplies.com and use promo code LCSPOD today. That's LCSPOD.
What happens when 20-something Madison is zapped into old-time radio shows? No technology.
I want to go to voicemail.
No Starbucks.
Don't call yourself a coffee shop if you only sell drip coffee.
And no one is PC.
I don't need no lip from...
Were you about to say woman? Because I'm wearing a gun and I have no idea how to use it.
Madison on the Air serves to highlight the way we were and the way we are today, with original radio drama scripts adapted to include the modern-day Madison as she joins famous characters from radio's past, including Sergeant Joe Friday.
Just the facts, ma'am. I've never actually said that.
Marshal Matt Dillon.
We're not having a shootout with a 10-year-old kid.
I'm too woke to be a part of this.
Superman.
I didn't realize how cold it would be flying like this.
I have to get into the higher atmosphere.
And many more. Visit us on the web at madisonontheair.com or find us pretty much any place podcasts can be found.
You talk so old-timey. I have no idea what you said, but it's adorbs.
All right, back with more of The Last Comic Shop, and it is now time for ratings, where we don't get Eisner Awards for doing this every week. I think they cut... or ever. I mean, come on. I think they cut that award with like best comic journalism ever or something. I don't know. Not that we would even be nominated that, because we're just a bunch of schmucks, but we're schmucks with a 1 out of 4 rating. And JA, what is that 1 out of 4 scale for Birds of Prey?
Well, we're gonna go with flight feathers.
Ooh.
So if you've got 4 flight feathers, you can obviously fly very far. If you only have 2 flight feathers, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. You're going to be flapping around a bit more. So how many flight feathers?
All right. Well, we're going to start off with Chad because I feel like he has been the most persnickety about this particular book.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it, Chad. I mean, honestly, like if this was Matt Fraction writing this book and it was all about a bunch of bros, I don't know.
Yeah, very, very Debbie Downer.
Yeah.
We're all at Disney World and you're like, there'll probably be a line.
You're not wrong, right? And listen, dude, when Matt Fraction did this book with Leonardo Romero, Hawkeye, a great book. Leonardo Romero, he was the fill-in guy. The main event was David Aja, who elevated that book, to levels of genuine greatness. That's my biggest problem with this is not the book itself. I think the book itself, it's fun. It's fine. I enjoyed it. It's the level of success that it's garnered, and then I feel real bad about that because I don't want to be somebody who's seen as, women are bad and blah, blah. Like, no, I just think it's fine. It's fun. I think if you are coming at this because you've heard, oh, it's Eisner nominated, it's, and it's built up, it's not that. It's just fun. It's a fun book. It's a fun gal pal, get the band together and go fight some MacGuffins, and then turns out that MacGuffin bonds with your sister and makes voices in the back of her head. Whatever.
Wow. Well, maybe is it because you've also that there were other books you thought got snubbed? Or something?
Absolutely. I've sung the praises of Ryan North's Fantastic Four. We're month in and month out. They're doing fun, original stuff, and then bam, they're moving on to the next thing. It's like the polar opposite of this one. Jed McKay has been killing it on so many books. Blood Hunt is tons of fun. And why is Blood Hunt fun? It shouldn't be, but it is. That kind of stuff. Whereas I'm just a bitter old man. But I like this. It's fun. I'll give it a 3. I enjoyed it. Some of the art changes were kind of jarring. Like I wish, and this is just me, if you need to do the fill-in artists, unless it's an issue that is unto itself, I'd rather them try to find somebody with a copacetic style. And I thought that, sometimes the art seemed like it jumped all over the place. But it was all good. Like I can't. I'm just a grumpy old man. I'm complaining about things that I shouldn't complain about, and I recognize this. It's fine. It's a 3. 3 feathers. 3 floating, flighty feathers of feminine fortitude. Good times. Great fun. 3.
I'll go next. Even though I seem like in this show the polar opposite of Chad, where I was saying it was quippy and wonderful and I was trying to sing its praises, I'm still going to give it a 3 as well. But I'm going to be more positive with my 3. And I'm going to say, unlike Chad, who thinks that there wasn't somebody that elevated this book, I think Kelly Thompson elevated this book. I think that Kelly Thompson's writing was bubbly. It was like, I don't know, sitting in a jacuzzi tub on a mountaintop somewhere and just having a champagne flute, back to that, of like some sort of pink bubbly liquid, and you're like, life is good, and there's a cozy robe over there on the side. Like, it was a nice feeling reading this book. It was great chemistry between the two characters. I do agree with Chad that it was very kind of jarring when Harley Quinn left, because I really did like the interactions that Harley Quinn and Black Canary were having. I thought they kind of were like the yin and yang of the team, and it was kind of nice to have somebody not agree with Black Canary all the time. But you really come for, some of the other interactions, like the Barda and Cassie Kane interactions were really great. Eventually you do get Black Canary and Babs, and they're just wonderful together. And boy, those 2 issues, when they go and they're on the runways, whoo, boy. As a man that likes looking at the female form, those were some great issues. Even though they were talking about the beefcake all the time, I was talking about the cheesecake. And that's a 3 still. I didn't like the colors. I will be very honest. The colors were very jarring, and I did not like that issue where everybody had eyes the size of dinner plates. It was just weird. It was like a completely different vibe, and it took me out of the story for an issue. So yeah, it's a 3. Is it Eisner Award winning? I don't know. We'll see in a couple weeks. J.A.
I was going to give it a 3 as well, but I think I'll elevate it slightly. 3.25. That 0.25 is for the Jack Kirby Barda head, strategically placed on a panel. in issue 8. It was fun. I really enjoyed reading it for the first time. I got it on Amazon Kindle, so I got all the issues and this overpriced uncovered issue that is part of the set but is just an issue of covers. So if you're buying it on Amazon, don't buy that issue because it's just covers. Now if you want all the covers, go for it, but if you're just trying to get the whole story on digital format, you don't need that. There's no story. It's 48 pages of alternate covers, so be warned. And it's also more expensive than the regular issues. I wonder if Kelly Thompson gets some residuals for that one, since there's no writing in it. I don't know. Anyways, I digress. I look forward to actually that first trade. It'll be the first 6 issues. I think that's the story arc. So when that comes out, I think I might have to get it in trade as well, just to have it in a physical format. Is it Eisner worthy or not? I don't know. I'm glad it got nominated. I'm glad more people are reading it. I really like Kelly Thompson's writing. I don't think this is as good as the other Kelly Thompson book that we read on this show, Black Cloak.
Oh yeah, that's
I thought
great.
Black Cloak was much more interesting and sort of out of left field and dealt with things in a much more unique way. But, this is Kelly Thompson getting to play in the main DC universe. And I do like that they sort of almost gave her carte blanche on who she could choose and pull into this group. And while I could have used a bit more Harley Quinn, I'm glad that we've got different characters coming in too, that it's not just one set of the same people. I like this idea that you can mix and match for mission specific needs, as long as you keep Barda and Smallbat. I don't care. It's all good. So yeah, 3.25.
All right. Well, it's now time to get to our recommendations for this week. Yes, these are other books in addition to Birds of Prey, which you can either find in single issues, maybe. I mean, they might still be in boxes or on the stands at your local comic book shop, or you can wait until I think it's the first week in August when the trade of the first 6 issues will drop at your local comic book store. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to go ahead and start off with Chad, who may have a book that maybe he liked more. Are you less grumpy about this pick, Chad?
No, I'm just going to pick another one that's fun. No, I'm going to go with The Bat Dash Man, First Night, which was a DC Black Label story that just wrapped up here in late May. It was a 3-book experience written by Dan Jurgens, who you may remember from Superman books in the 90s. Art by Mike Perkins, who I first noticed while he was working on the Brubaker run of Captain America. Mike Spicer on colors, letters by Simon Boland. And what this is a Batman story. It is set in 1939, and it has all the trappings of a story set in 1939. And you might be familiar with, on this show, we just talked about Gotham Year One, which was Tom King exploring his noir tendencies in a story that didn't need to be about Batman. This Batman First Night is Dan Jurgens going the opposite route, where he's exploring his 1939 noir tendencies, with a fast-talking movie star and the, corrupt cops being flushed out by James Gordon. But he does that with Batman and tells a really satisfying story. So if you like all those fast-talking, quippy characters, if you like an inexperienced Batman wearing the purple gloves, getting strapped to an electric chair, but spoiler alert, he lives in the next issue, you want to see that stuff happen, and there's a big mystery behind who is the voice that's sending out these weirdo zombie guys all around Gotham City. The Batman First Night is the way to go. And like I said at the top, it's just fun. It's, 1930s Bat fun. So check it out. It's out of DC's Black Label, Batman First Night.
Oh, there you go. Well, my recommendation this week is going to be for a single issue, yes, that you might have to search your local comic book shops pretty rigorously and were to find, because I looked for it for a really long time, and eventually I did find it, and luckily I did, because boy, I was very excited to get it. It is Marvel Team Up issue 79. Yes, and if you're wondering why I'm just picking a random issue of that wonderful series that was released in the 70s and 80s where Spider-Man would team up with a random other superhero every single month, it's because this one is a gem. It has one of the greatest kick-ass women of all comic books in Red Sonja teaming up with Spider-Man, with a story done by Chris Claremont with John Byrne on pencils and Terry Austin on inks. So the classic Dark Phoenix Saga team coming back to do this issue of Marvel Team Up. And it is Christmas there in New York as Peter Parker meets Mary Jane at the Bugle's Christmas party with a slide nod to Clark Kent, who's at the Christmas party. It's pretty great stuff, actually. In any case, they end up going to some sort of museum where a security guard accidentally activates some sort of strange MacGuffin that brings back an ancient wizard from the past. And so while Spider-Man's fighting this ancient wizard in this museum, Mary Jane stumbles in, touches a magic sword, and gets transformed into Red Sonja. That's right. And so Red Sonja / Mary Jane teams up with Spider-Man against this evil wizard. They defeat them as one of the greatest couples in comics, and eventually, after he's defeated, Red Sonja then transforms back into Mary Jane. But you do get that...
At which point, Peter Parker says, darn.
But it's awesome, because you get like that I have the power magic Castle Grayskull moment of one famous redhead turning into another famous redhead. It's just wonderful. So yeah, if you can find Marvel Team Up issue 79, might be a little bit difficult to get nowadays, because as Chad's pointed out on these shows before, anytime you have one of those crossover characters with the licenses, like those are ones that collectors tend to try to pick up, because again, like Red Sonja is not with Marvel anymore. So yeah, it's a little bit harder to find, and they don't reprint it as much. But this is a great story. Check it out.
And I was going to say, it's more affordably reprinted in Marvel Tales issue 208, same cover. So you can find that a little bit more cost efficiently than the Marvel Team Up.
Well, there you go. J.A., round us out here.
Okay, so I'm going to stick on the avian theme and go with a book that you can pick up. The first 3 issues are out now, and that is Rook Exodus by Jeff Johns, Jason Fabok, Brad Anderson, and Rob Lee out of Image Comics. The first issue came out in April. Issue 4 might be dropping pretty soon now. And this is a dystopian future comic where the protagonist, Rook, is on this world that had been terraformed, and all the creatures were controlled. So the bears, the wolves, the deer, they were all controlled by these helmets that you would wear, and each person wears a helmet. So Rook has a helmet that's shaped like a crow, because he controls all the crows. He can talk to the crows. When he puts the helmet on, he neurally links to the crows, and they'll follow him around and whatnot. But it's gone haywire. Everyone's left the world except for some of these people that were there as contractors to run all the different animals. And now the animals are growing and becoming wild, and the contractors are trying to fight for limited resources and broken parts of rocket ships so that they can get off this world, because the big corporates have left and left them there. And so you've got this Rook and his crow mask going around this dystopian planet looking for parts to build a rocket ship and get off the planet, but he's having to fight with other people. And while he has a crow mask and controls crows, there's somebody who has a bear mask, and he can control these now massive bears because the animals have grown up. So I think the bear mask man is going to win against the crow mask man. I'm just
saying. Never know. You know what they call a group of crows, right? They call it a murder.
So there you go. And in this first issue, for example, he has a friend who has a pig mask, and his friend is helping find spare parts for the rocket ship using the pigs, because pigs have very, good sort of truffle sensing noses. So instead of looking for truffles, they're looking for rocket parts.
Oh.
Can pigs do that? Just change it up and be like, now we're metal detectors.
They can if they've got a neural link to a man who's got a pig mask on.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah. I was curious about this series because, it comes out of some of the great work that Jeff Johns is doing over at Image right now with, like, his whole Geiger universe. And I know I've been a huge, huge fan of Geiger, but I don't think this series has anything to do with the Geiger-verse, with Geiger and Red Coat and all those characters, even though Jeff Johns is writing it.
It does not.
So, but still, if you like what Jeff Johns been doing, and he does write pretty good serialized storytelling, it seems like J.A. is really enjoying Rook Exodus. I love that art.
Yeah, the covers. I came for the covers and I stayed for the story.
It's like the 90s all over again. And one thing that we hope is all over again is you coming back to the Last Comic Shop next week. That's right. We're hoping that you come back again and again and again. And you can do that by rate, reviewing, and subscribing over at www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com. Make sure that you are sticking with us for the rest of July, because, again, we're going to have a show coming up where we're going to give you the rest of the Eisner nominees. So Kelly Thompson, with this particular book, is nominated, as well as she's nominated for Best Writer for just in general all the work that she's been doing. And I believe Black Cloak is also nominated. So a lot of stuff from Kelly Thompson this year among the nominations. And you'll hear a lot more of those nominations in upcoming episodes.
There you go. And you never know what potentially nominated books could be waiting for you at your local comic shop. So we encourage you guys to head on down there and check things out. Check out the Birds of Prey. It's fun.
Unless you're a grumpy old man.
Yeah, even if you are, it's still fun. Then you also have some of the other books we recommended. Maybe you're diving in the back issue bins for Marvel Team Up 79, getting your Mary Jane Red Sonja fix. Or you're looking for issues of Rook Exodus, which should still be on the shelves there, available for you. Or the Batman First Night, which didn't come out that long ago either. So that could be currently on shelves for you as we speak as well. But look for all that and more at your local comic shop. And then circle back to our website, www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com, where they can find what else, Jay?
You've got a link to our merch store where you can get T-shirts, coffee mugs, tote bags. This week only, maybe a specialized T-shirt with strategically placed Barda heads. You never know. Check it out.
Oh, my. Well, you don't have to worry about that on our social media accounts. You can look for us on X and the other ones, at Last Comic Shop. I don't know, Andy, what else do we have to say about that? I forget how we do this thing.
You know what? Make sure that you're also going out to bcwsupplies.com using our promo code LCSPOD. Get yourself 10% off of your comic book bric-a-brac. That's right, comic book bags and boards and boxes and all the stuff that you need to keep that collection looking fresh. That is LCSPOD, 10% off. Use it today.
Saving money is fun.
That's right. Fun. Very fun, even if you are a grumpy old man. And until next week, when you can hear all three of us grumpy old men again, I'm the host with the most, Andy Larson. I'm joined by Chad Smith and Jay Scott, and we hope that you stay safe, stay cool, and remember that if you're fighting a bunch of beefcake that's been mentally controlled by their clothing, you don't need to take off yours necessarily, unless you want to. I think Barda just wanted to. She was thirsty.
Oh, my.
The Last Comic Shop podcast was a 2024 Black Angus production.